Okay, I'm going to get started. Welcome to Beyond Awareness, what it really takes to grow culturally. Um, this is a session for people who are either living across cultures because they've moved to a new country or because they are in their own context interacting with people from other cultures, either in their home context or work context. My name is Jackie Rolander, and I'm a personal development coach and trainer. Um, I grew up in the island of Barbados. I've been living cross culturally for more than 20 years in different countries. I help individuals, professionals, and international teams to grow through um, coaching and training using different techniques and including reflective learning, where we're not just here to learn about others, but helping them develop themselves in the process, not just to learn facts, but to really have these facts take root and to help us change. Now, we live in a highly globalized world, and Richard Branson, who is the founder of Virgin Group, has said that globalization has brought the world closer in many ways, but it has also highlighted the importance of understanding and celebrating our cultural differences. Business leaders must recognize that success in the global market means more than just expanding into new territories. It also requires a deep appreciation for the diverse cultures and traditions that shape those markets. By embracing this cultural diversity, businesses can foster innovation, strengthen relationships, and create lasting value that transcends borders. We live in this world that's so globalized, even more so than it was just maybe 10 years ago, where you can take a flight to almost anywhere very easily. You have the world at your fingertips through the internet. You can sit in your living room and have a conversation with a stranger live, a friend, or even a friend or relative. People also seem to be migrating more than before. Some by choice, but also we have quite a bit of migration happening because of uh, war or um, different tragedies in particular countries. When we live cross culturally, whether we have moved because we want to embrace something new, or whether we've been forced to move, it, different things can happen in us, and it's good if we can have a deep appreciation for the diversity of the culture that we're going to experience by moving. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with everything or practice everything from the culture, but rather appreciate humanity, appreciate the potential in the culture, appreciate the beauty of this cultural diversity. In today's session, going beyond awareness, I want to look first at three myths that we sometimes meet when we talk about working cross culturally. The first one is that cultural awareness is the same as cultural fluency. Now, while awareness is important, excuse me, as a foundation, it's not the whole house, if you can say it like that. You can learn about a culture, learn the cultural norms in the area. You can listen to the music, eat the food, think that it's beautiful. But you might even learn some of the different things that people do and learn the language. But you are still in a place where you might be able to offend people and not understand why. And sometimes that leads us into bitterness and misunderstanding, because what we're doing is we're taking the things we know or we're aware of and applying them with the same brush, not really understanding the nuances or not truly understanding how to apply them. Cultural fluency is the ability to understand, appreciate, and navigate different cultural contexts and perspectives. The second myth I'd like to just deal with is that experience means mastery. Just because you have some experience does not mean that you will be able to master the experience, master dealing with a new culture. Think for a second. Who do you know or have met who has lived cross culturally? Maybe in a different country, or they maybe they've like traveled a lot but not lived there, but yet they have not grown beyond their biases, the biases that they brought with them. I have a relative that lived in two different countries other than their home country, and after years of butting heads with different groups, um, what really happened is that all their biases were confirmed in some way, and they even developed more. And this is not recently; this is like some while ago, actually. And they would say, like, this group of people is like this, or this group of people is like that, and they never really learned to appreciate the people. But on the other hand, you have people who are excited about culture, about learning more and improving themselves, and they try to understand um, why the issues come, and they learn to adapt in how they behave in handling the issues. Having experience doesn't necessarily mean that you learn from those experiences and that you grow. Reflecting on an experience so that you can form new conclusions that you can test is how you grow. There's this thing called Kolb's learning cycle that educators like to use. Um, it's one of the theories out there about how people learn. And in this learning cycle, they basically say you have to go through each point of this cycle to be able to learn something new. Don't just take in information or just have an experience, but you need to go through this whole cycle to come to a place of actual learning. Myth number 3: cultural development equals understanding the people. One of the biggest mistakes we make when we interact cross culturally is that we think what we need to be doing is studying the other people and understanding them. That's it. As long as we've done that, we're fine. And this is not really true. One of the main questions we need to ask ourselves to grow in our cultural understanding is, who am I in this moment? What am I bringing with me into this space? Living cross culturally or interacting cross culturally can expose so much of who we are in terms of our own cultural beliefs and expectations. Before the first coming to Sweden the first time, I've been told that Swedes do not, if they bump into someone on the street walking past them, they don't tend to stop. Now, in my cultural context, that's incredibly rude, and okay, this is how they roll, so that's fine. I'll just deal with it. But what was interesting is when it happened the first time, I got really upset, and I didn't really understand why. You know, it was almost as if I hadn't heard about this. Me knowing that this was something that was going to happen, this bumping into you, not stopping, did not really help me in the moment. And I ran the risk of thinking that these people were just rude. Cultural development is about becoming more aware of ourselves in the presence of difference, as in the difference of the other people. When you're in your own space, you behave a certain way because everybody accepts certain things that you do, or let's put it this way, that you know how to behave, and everybody knows how to behave, and everybody's happy. But when you're in a different space where people behave differently, it can really bring up who you really are and how you're really thinking about things. And we need to be aware of that and be able to do the reflection so that we can deal with those issues. Now, right, next thing, some of the cultural shifts some of the shifts that will need to happen for us. Being curious is fine and it's good, but we want to move from just being curious to having courage. Being curious is a good start, but real growth requires courage. To be able to admit our blind spots, to dare to examine our deeply held beliefs and shift them if necessary, and to change our behaviors. It's not common for people in the culture to believe themselves to be better, smarter, or even more worthy than people in another culture, sometimes even unconsciously. I was a little surprised a while ago. after moving to Sweden about a prejudice that I had developed. I wasn't even aware of it. Where I was teaching somewhere, and one of the workers that I hadn't met yet came into the staff room, and we sat eating and we were chatting, and he asked me where I was from, and I said from Barbados, and he said, "Oh, okay." And I thought, this is the really embarrassing part. I hadn't realized it, but because of the accent he had, which I had heard other people say things about, I assumed that this was a guy who really didn't travel much, had just stuck in his own little corner in Sweden. I wasn't even aware that's what I was doing. But when he said, "Oh, Barbados, yeah, I know where that is," and it's Caribbean, blah, blah, blah. I've been to the US and so on. I was in shock because I had made this assumption about this man, but I wasn't aware that I had this. It's basically a prejudice in my own mind. So then I had to work on that. Just because people have a certain accent, and even in a Swedish context, doesn't mean that they are not well traveled or don't know about the world and things like that. And this is a prejudice I didn't have as a child. This was a prejudice I picked up from hearing things from people around me. Brené Brown, in her TED talk about vulnerability, she's a sociologist, I guess you would call her, a researcher, said that the original definition of the word courage was to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. Let us be curious about others, yes, but let us have the courage to be curious about ourselves, who we are, and the courage to do an honest assessment of who we are and what we believe, and the courage to make changes where necessary. Sometimes taking a look at ourselves can be a little bit daunting, but we can be courageous in this and be willing to do the hard work needed through reflection so that we can grow. The second shift I want to mention is from knowing to becoming or being. You can gather facts and be able to recite them, but it doesn't really change you. You might be able to quote facts about a situation or a group and be completely correct, but it doesn't change who you are and improve your ability to understand their context or appreciate them. Fact is, you might have certain information and draw the wrong conclusions about the people and who they are. For example, this story about walking down the street and bumping into people. If you're coming from a Caribbean context, that's incredibly rude for you. What conclusion might you draw if that happened to you here in Sweden? You might assume these people are rude. But what's interesting is if you come to a place of being that person who is culturally fluent and being able to ask questions and learn to understand and actually developing empathy uh, and choosing to engage when it's hard, you might find that you come to a different conclusion. What I found out was that for a Swede, in some way it is bad enough that they have interrupted you by bumping into you, disturb your day by bumping into you. Why would they disturb you even further by stopping and talking to you about it? It's best to just go on your way. Now, that might not make sense to you, but what it does is it shifts your understanding a little bit so that you see the people differently. And that's what we want to be. We want to become the kind of people who are culturally fluent, who can take the time to ask the relevant questions and to have empathy before we make judgments about people. And after we make judgments about them, actually. And then we also want to move from reaction to reflection. That's the third shift. Sometimes when a situation is tense, we default to reaction. But if we are growing, we need to be able to take a step back in ourselves and think, what has happened? What does it say about me? And why do I feel this way? Got a little screen that wants to turn itself off. Sorry about this. Another thing that happened was I heard that Swedes had like to, reach across the table. Same thing, they don't want to disturb you, so they'll reach across the table instead of asking you to pass things. Now, again, English speaking context, Caribbean, it's best to ask, please pass the salt or please pass the fish or whatever it is. And I knew this was going to happen, but I did not realize how irritated I could feel about it until it happened. And I had to take a breath when the first time it happened to me, and calm myself down. And that's when I realized how much it actually meant for me to not have somebody lean across me like that. I didn't really understand it before, you know. What would have happened if I had just blown up at the person who done it? I said, "What's wrong with you? You ain't got no manners," as we might tend to do in Barbados. That could have caused a huge chasm between us. And I'm glad that in that moment I had the presence of mind to stop myself from reacting. I know there are other times that I haven't done that, that I've just reacted without realizing that what's going on actually isn't a terrible thing, but it is somebody doing something differently, but it stirred up something inside me. There are times when things that upset us really are horrific or wrong. But it helps if we take a moment to understand why we're reacting. Is this thing really bad? Is it really wrong? Or is it just different from what I'm accustomed to? Why is it that I'm getting upset or angry? What boundary are they crossing? And is it a boundary that I need to hold? Or is it a boundary that I need to reassess? Or simply just understand that they're not really crossing the boundary, it's my perception of it. Instead of allowing anger or disgust to cause us to erupt, let's ask why first. Let's take some time to reflect. Now, researchers have this thing that is called cultural intelligence. And the Cultural Intelligence Center in the US has defined cultural intelligence. They say it's the ability to relate and work effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds. And it goes beyond existing notions of cultural sensitivity and awareness. And with cultural intelligence, you'll know how to strategically use cultural differences to come up with more innovative solutions. In our globalized world, it's becoming more and more important for us to not just know that cultures are different, but understand how we can interact with each other. We can have so much that we can learn from people who come from another culture. If we are wise and we learn how to do this in a good way. And I'll talk about cultural intelligence another time, probably next month. Um, So for you who are here, I got some. What kind of language is that? I have some reflection questions for you to think through. And those who watch after, feel free. Think about this. When was the last time I felt off? Sorry, I felt off in a cross-cultural moment. And what assumptions was I holding on to at the time? Do I tend to expect others to adapt to me, or am I willing to shift my approach first? If so, why? Or why not? Which part of my identity feels most challenged in multicultural spaces, and how do I respond to that discomfort? Am I curious about others' cultural perspectives even when they challenge mine? Or what does that curiosity look like in action? How often do I pause to reflect after a cross culture interaction, not just on what happened, but on how I showed up? Just take a couple of minutes to think through that. I'm going to mute myself here and drink some water. Now, if you would like this as a worksheet, go ahead and contact me. If you've received this link, then you have some kind of contact with me either on Facebook or on LinkedIn. You can also write to me here on YouTube. I'll just tell you, it's a nice little PDF, simple that you can fill out on your own. If it's okay with you, I will just move forward now as we move towards the end of this session. What are the next steps? Excuse me, if you find that you are someone who wants to grow cross culturally, or you realize that there's some work that you still need to do, even if you have been doing some. I think one of the main things is to commit to learning and growing and becoming culturally fluent. When we make that commitment to ourselves, then we will make sure that we do the work, even in our own space and time. Um, everyone is different, and some people will go and take a ton of courses, or some people will throw themselves into things. And some people, just because of life circumstances, may not have a ton of time. But when you make that commitment, it means that you will look for opportunities and take advantage of the opportunities that you can. The Beyond the Facts guide is the PDF that I mentioned just now. I have this group on Facebook called Thrive Beyond Culture. I plan to do another session in June, and then release some recorded ideas in July. Sorry, a session in June, a session in July, recorded ideas in August. And then my plan is to start doing lives again in September, hopefully twice a month. Life can get busy, so hopefully I'll be able to stick to that. But I believe that this is very important. These kind of topics are important to be discussed and taught about. So if you're interested, feel free. Again, you probably have contact with me some way. So if you already are in the Facebook group, look out for these upcoming sessions. If not, go into Facebook and look for Thrive Beyond Culture, and please sign up. I won't spam you. I don't give you a bunch of information every day or ask you to do a lot of things every day or anything like that. If you're someone who realizes that you might need some one-on-one interaction, as I said before, I'm a coach and trainer, and I have this offer of 5 free 60-minute sessions, where we can't deal with everything in 5 sessions, but we can do some things and try to help you get on the road to moving forward in your cultural fluency, cultural intelligence development, but also as a person, because as we said before, a lot of this cross-cultural work that we do in ourselves starts with us. So you have that option, is go to activatethepotential.com/mini-thrive. Again, you can just go to Activate the Potential and look for that page as well. And if you just want to have a conversation, feel free to contact me. Facebook, LinkedIn. If you're in the area in Sweden, in Jönköping, we can have even a coffee if you want, or we can have a call or some messaging. I'm not doing this. This is my job, yes, but I really believe that we are in a time and space where it's very important that we are proactive about understanding how to respond and deal with cross-cultural interactions, because it's being thrown on everyone, whether or not they want to. There are very few places in the world who are not having foreigners come to them, or very few people in their daily lives who don't have to deal with foreigners in some way. And if we want to do this well, then we need to do the work to be able to do it well. It doesn't just happen naturally for everyone. The people who do it usually have put some thought into what they're going to do. And I think that there are many forces out there who are trying their best to divide people as much as they can for whatever reasons. And if we consider ourselves reasonable people, then let's do the work to make sure that we don't fall into the traps that are being set. We don't want to be, we don't want to go down the road that history tells us many times people have gone down. We want to put a stop to this, and we want to thrive. We want to live in a way that is good for us, good for the people around us, our families, and good for the world in general. So I'm rambling. I'm going to stop there. If I'm going to stick around for a couple of moments. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Oh, I also forgot to say, this channel is the channel I'm going to use for things cross-cultural from my company's point of view. So it's taking some time to get up and running, but look out for not just lives, but other videos to, um, they say drop. I'm going to drop a few videos here talking about culture and things like that. So if you like this time, feel free to go ahead and click the like button. Feel free to subscribe and tell others. And I think that we can do some good things. Okay, I'm going to get going. Thank you for taking the time for being here. I really appreciate that you made the effort. And hopefully see you again soon in the future. This video will be available here on YouTube and in the Facebook group in the future. Take care. Bye bye.